Ever have wheat for breakfast, either creamed or shredded? Ever find the bank mysteriously closed on an October Monday? Are the power cables to your home less than 6 inches in diameter? You have the World's Columbian Exhibition of 1893 to thank. Meant to celebrate the 400th anniversary of Columbus's first landing in the Americas, please ignore the extra year. The 1893 World's Fair was Chicago's chance to prove its rich people could be just as snooty as the East Coast establishment. I don't think they succeeded, but they did put on the best World's Fair ever in the attempt. Visionary architect Daniel Burnham was made Director of Works, and began assembling a team of the top architectural talent in the country to turn 600 acres of undeveloped swampy land into a gleaming city of possibility. They built over 200 buildings, including one of the largest in the world, in less than 2 years. For a uniform look, they were covered in white stucco, and the fair's central area became known as the White City. The gleaming buildings and artificial lagoons made the 120,000 electric lights even more dazzling, definitively ending the War of Currents. Not everything went so well. Burnham's partner John Root died of pneumonia early in the planning stages, and the closing celebration was cancelled on account of Mayor Harrison's assassination shortly before. Harrison's last words were arguing with his neighbor about whether his gunshot wound was fatal or not. The mayor died both angry and correct. Landmark history didn't get guests in the door, attractions did. People sold novel-sized guidebooks listing where to find all the best stuff. Organizers didn't want Buffalo Bill's Wild West show as part of their classy affair, so he set up right next door and leached attendance from them the whole time. Mark Twain couldn't get in either because he spent his entire visit sick in his hotel room. The Midway was supposed to be an anthropological showcase like the 1889 Paris Fair had. It was organized by 23-year-old boxing promoter Saul Bloom, who invited indigenous peoples from around the world as exhibits, and helped make up authentic displays, like billing belly dances as the Hoochie Coochie Dance, for which he wrote this song you're hearing right now. Yeah, recognize it, don't you? Bloom went on to serve 22 years in the House of Representatives. Attendance grew once the Ferris wheel opened about 2 months after the fair had. It was commissioned to top the Eiffel Tower, the centerpiece of the 1889 fair. At 26 stories, it would still be a remarkably large wheel today, and the passenger cars were essentially trolley cars hung from the frame with a total capacity of 2,160 riders. The first riders were laborers who jumped on the spokes during testing before the cars had even been attached. Dang, freeloaders. The 1893 World's Fair is where people first tried juicy fruit gum or saw an electric dishwasher. It's where Pabst earned its blue ribbon and ragtime found a national audience. 27 million people attended, which was over 40% of the US population at the time. They went home with memories of a city that was clean and illuminated, with police actively preventing crimes, and landscaping and architecture that fulfilled a promise. The fair catapulted the City Beautiful movement. Burnham himself went on to make several city plans, including his plan for Chicago that is still a major force in our urban planning. Henry Ford saw his first combustion engine there, and Walt Disney's dad always told stories about helping build the fairgrounds back before his sons were born. It was a watershed moment in American history. The fair was so popular that plans for a museum to commemorate it were in motion before the fair had even ended. Items were bought for cheap from exhibitors who didn't want to ship them back home, and they became the original collection of the Field Museum of Natural History. Only 2 buildings were meant to be permanent, and they still survive. The rest burned down. It just keeps happening, I'm sorry. Those buildings now house the Art Institute of Chicago in Grant Park and the Museum of Science and Industry. The Big Lagoon and Wooded Isle also remain. This was a hard topic to cover because there's too many stories to tell. If you're curious, I recommend checking out The Devil in the White City by Eric Larson. Half of it is a history of the fair focusing on the little anecdotes that history forgets. The other half is a true crime story about a murder castle. Next time we're going to skip ahead a few decades, so be sure to grab a new outfit.